Después de haber vivido un tiempo de bipolaridad en el desarrollo inmobiliario, como lo hemos expuesto en este espacio, nos preguntamos qué pasa si hacemos una abstracción de lo que se está viendo de México desde el exterior, y por eso hemos decidido platicar con dos personas que tienen ese microscopio y ese telescopio a la vez muy bien afinado, como para ubicar qué es lo que está ocurriendo en México, que se refleja a nivel internacional, y desde luego las oportunidades de negocios que se ven en los diferentes ámbitos del mercado inmobiliario de nuestro país. Richard,
hello.
Why the investor is looking Mexico?
It's regarded as one of the leading emerging markets around the world, and one with a good, stable economic system. It needs to make sure that it continues with macroeconomic stability and good policy settings. But I think investors are looking at Mexico as an opportunity for growth, really. Growth in a number of sectors, service sector growth they see pretty strong in Mexico, tourism growth as well. They're all opportunities for investors who are interested in real estate to capitalize on. Mm-hmm. But I would also say, I'd make another point that is not related to economics, which is to do with seeing Mexico more holistically. And I've noticed around the world a lot of emphasis and profile on the artist Frida Kahlo, who I personally love. But she's becoming very iconic around the world, and people are interested in art and sophistication and culture, and how that shapes the society. And I think it makes Mexico look more attractive.
What can you tell me about the political transition? I mean, the new government and the rules. Does it matters to the global investor?
Yes, it does. Always, I think the government, the investors are going to be looking at the government's tax policy. They're going to look at the interest rate policy. So they're going to want to see stability there. Always want to see stability, and also continuity over time. So I think that kind of policy stability is important.
What today are looking like great opportunities to develop?
As an emerging market, Mexico is going to see continued growth of the service sector, and the service sector operates out of offices, and I think investors will want to deploy capital there. At the moment, I would say Mexico has a very adequate supply of new offices. So the scope to do development is a bit more limited over the next 12 to 18 months in Mexico. Mm-hmm. But in the longer term, investors will be looking at that. They will also be looking at how retail is evolving. Retail is evolving into much more experiential retail, so much more emphasis on food and beverage type offer, much more cool brands, cool shops, creating a place. So I think the opportunity is to upgrade the infrastructure and to bring it into a place that will compete with other tourist locations around the world, not just for tourists, for ordinary people. This emphasis on place we see very strongly around the world, and I think if Mexico can capture that, then I think investors will be very interested. Mm-hmm. And logistics is extremely, as we see distribution of goods shifts from bricks and mortar to e-commerce delivery. The real opportunity there is, as everywhere else, but particularly in Mexico, is in what we call last mile delivery. Mm-hmm. Places where you can get goods to the home within one day.
You mentioned issues related with the domestic market, but what about to the export? I mean, the production that now is growing in different places around the country.
One of the mild negatives around Mexico would be it's over concentrated in the automotive sector. It's not alone in that. There are big economies, Japan and Germany also have over capacity in the auto sector, and we're seeing a little bit of a decline globally in the auto sector. So that might be a bit of problem for exports. And also Mexico's, the oil price is weak as well, so that will affect. But other areas of manufactured goods, clearly Mexico remains part of the US supply chain network. It's going to benefit under the USMCA agreement. So for all other manufactured components, I think probably a very good opportunity to export to the United States.
What happened with the recession? Because everybody is waiting for it through the last 2 or 3 years. So it's coming or not, and how does it impact today?
It's a very interesting question. I think this time last year, United States interest rates were going up. Interest rates were going up in Europe as well. So I think people were looking at the possibility of an interest rate-led a downturn. Particularly, actually, there is more debt in the global economy and more debt in Latin America, more debt in Mexico than there was prior to the great financial crisis. So people were worried about interest rates going up. But the good thing, and it's come, a bit of a surprise, is just how low inflation is around the world. So as the economy slowed, it's allowed central banks, the Fed has cut interest rates, the ECB is doing quantitative easing. Central banks around the world are cutting interest rates, and actually it's boosting the economy. So as long as inflation stays low, and I think our outlook for inflation staying low is likely to be over 2 or 3 years, interest rates can be cut, and we see a slower economy, but no recession.
The Mexican economy is going slow if you compare with other periods in other governments. So is there anything that worried to the investors in terms of the economy?
I think the policy stability is one issue. I think we'd like to see the USMCA Act done and the new trading arrangements actually finalised, which I think will benefit Mexico. And I'd love myself to see more stability in the automotive industry as well. The reason for the global downturn in automotives is not clear. So that's a little bit of a problem. So those would worry, but they're not overwhelming. Investors in real estate usually take a long-term perspective. Mexico, and sometimes having a short-term slowdown in the economy can be a buying opportunity.
So that's the reason why we are looking at many investments.
Yeah, I mean, investors will look at opportunities if the currency is weak or if the economy is weak, that there's opportunity there to buy for the long term. Around the world, real estate prices are extremely high. And so these little periods where you get some turbulence or some slowdown, they can be turned to the advantage of investors.
Mexico is still being competitive if you compare with other Latin American economies?
As well, there is some work for Mexico to do, and I've talked about policy stability, but there are other things to do, and we try very hard at CBRE to do this, but being more transparent in terms of data and what are rental movements, and investors like transparency. So the more data that the industry can produce on how markets are functioning, demand and supply at the sub-market level, that creates a transparency that allows investors. So I think there's more work to be done there for Mexico. But it is, I think, one of the leading.
What would you tell to an investor who wants to come to Mexico?
High trend growth, opportunity, bags of opportunity for value add to upgrade and renovate and create new product, and opportunities as elsewhere to participate in the way the digital economy is changing real estate. To participate in the growth of co-working and the growth of placemaking. It's got a high trend growth rate.